The woman accidentally burns her scalp with a curling iron, but the teapot nearby starts to shake. She opens it up, and magically finds $200 inside. Confused, she burns herself one more time. After a scream, it's just as she suspected. The teapot spits out cash out of thin air, and this time, it's $700. To test it out again, she turns around and kicks the dining table hard. This time, the pain is much worse, and the teapot makes even more money. Alice is absolutely thrilled. She punches right through the cabinet door, and cash keeps flying out of the teapot. When her husband comes home from work, he finds the whole house in a mess. John thinks they've been robbed, but when he gets to the bedroom, he sees his wife lying in bed, covered in bruises. She tells John he can quit his job tomorrow, then places the teapot in his hands, and slaps him hard across the face. John instantly falls to the floor. His wife quickly explains that, as long as they feel physical pain, this brass teapot will generate cash out of thin air. John doesn't buy this nonsense. He thinks she hid the money in there beforehand. Seeing that her husband doesn't believe her, a huge amount of cash flies out of the teapot. John finally realizes his wife isn't lying. So, they begin their money-making journey. Turning on the gas stove, they feel the joy that pain brings. Alice takes the teapot to a beauty salon, and gets a full-body waxing package. She gets every single hair waxed off, except for her head. Meanwhile, John goes to the dentist, and opts for an old-school tooth extraction with no anesthesia. Finally, they hit up a tattoo parlor, and get tattoos on all their sensitive areas, striving to maximize the pain. Before long, they've saved up $200,000. But to avoid the IRS's attention, they hide the money in the toilet tank, and then go on a crazy shopping spree. John buys a convertible sports car, and Alice wildly buys expensive jewelry. A couple who couldn't even afford rent before, buys a luxury mansion in just 1 week. They transform into wealthy socialites overnight. Driven by curiosity, John brings the teapot to a live antique auction show, but the host doesn't know its origins either. He only knows the craftsmanship is exquisite, stating it's worth at least $5,000. What they don't know is that the teapot has already caught someone's attention. One day, while they're counting money at home, there's a sudden knock at the door. Alice quickly hides the teapot. They open the door to two strangers in hats, who immediately knock John down and force their way in. One of them fiercely questions John.
Where is the teapot?
Teapot?
The hat guy says the teapot is their family heirloom, saved by their grandmother who risked her life in World War II. Alice quickly lies that the teapot has been sold, sneaks $5,000 out of the pot, and hands it to them. The two take the money and happily leave. The couple wants to figure out the teapot's origins, so they head to the library, and find records of the teapot dating back to the Middle Ages. It clearly states the teapot has extraordinary mystical powers, but it also notes that those who use this power long-term never meet a good end. While John is picking something up, Alice quickly tears out that page, and hides it in her bag. She doesn't want to lose her chance to be filthy rich. They start throwing parties day and night, becoming the picture of success in their friends' eyes. Right around this time, a Dr. Ling from China shows up at their door. He asks them about the teapot's whereabouts, and warns them that they are in grave danger. Thinking he's just another guy trying to steal it, they tell him they've donated it to a museum. But Dr. Ling doesn't buy it at all. Worried that the teapot will be taken away, Alice rudely kicks Dr. Ling out. But that very night, the two hat-wearing robbers return. When they see the teapot in Alice's hands, they aren't surprised in the slightest, because they knew all along that Alice still had it. They know the teapot is cursed, so they never actually wanted to take it back. They just wanted the money it produces. It turns out, the guy's grandma would saw off stop signs every night to cause passing cars to crash. It just so happened that Alice and John drove by that day. After they crashed, Alice saw the grandma taking the teapot back to her shop. Possessed by greed, she followed her and stole the teapot when the old lady wasn't looking. Eventually, she accidentally discovered its secret. Alice refuses to let her hard-earned, self-inflicted cash be stolen, so she starts fighting with the hat guys. During the scuffle, the teapot falls to the floor. One of them is about to pick it up, but the other guy immediately yells at him to stop. They leave the teapot behind, grab the cash, and quickly take off. To finally understand the teapot's origins, they track down Dr. Ling. The doctor tells them the teapot has existed for 2,000 years. Throughout history, it fell into the hands of evil people, causing massive disasters. The owner of the teapot must not have a single evil thought, otherwise, they'll be consumed by it. The doctor urges them to hand the teapot over to him. He'll hide it in a place no one will ever find. But Alice believes she and John are good people, and they definitely won't be corrupted by it. So, she rejects the doctor's offer. She even thinks the doctor's only doing this because he wants to keep this money-making teapot for himself. In the days that follow, they keep hurting themselves for cash, but the teapot spits out less and less money. Only when the pain is higher will the payout be larger. To maintain their lavish lifestyle, John deliberately picks fights in a bar. He finds a murderer who just got out of prison, gets beaten to a bloody pulp, and ends up crying for his daddy. The next day, while Alice is figuring out how to make money, a skateboarder suddenly takes a nasty fall nearby. The teapot surprisingly starts shaking uncontrollably. Shortly after, it spits out a pile of cash. It turns out, other people's pain pays out too. So, the two start going around observing others in pain, watching boxing matches, watching people get tattoos, and even watching women give birth. They manage to rake in a lot of cash this way. One day, they're driving around looking for fresh pain. John feels they have enough money, and it's time to stop. But Alice isn't satisfied. Just then, she sees a pedestrian crossing the street, and instantly gets a terrifying idea. Alice slams on the gas pedal, and speeds right toward the person. At the critical moment, John grabs the steering wheel, barely preventing a tragedy. Alice flies into a rage, saying the guy was jaywalking anyway, so even if they killed him, they wouldn't be held liable. The two start fighting, saying a lot of hurtful things to each other. When Alice angrily steps out of the car, she nearly gets hit by a passing car. As she scrambles to dodge it, the teapot drops some cash. She obviously obviously wasn't physically hurt, so how did this money appear? But Alice quickly figures it out. She starts mocking John for being useless, saying he isn't good enough for her, and that he's lucky to even be with her. John feels a sharp sting in his heart. Then, Alice opens the teapot, and sure enough, it spawns another few $1,000. It turns out, emotional pain can also make the teapot produce cash. Alice hands the teapot to John, telling him to say something hurtful to her. At first, John refuses, but he caves under Alice's relentless pressure. He reveals a secret. At a New Year's party 4 years ago, they argued, and he kissed someone else. He adds that every time they kiss, he thinks of that person. Alice is heartbroken, but the teapot reacts immediately. Forcing a smile, she hands the money to John, and even praises him for a good job. After returning home, the two go into full truth or dare mode. John says that even after they got together, he often missed his ex-girlfriend, and sometimes even regretted choosing Alice. Alice is deeply hurt by this, but she turns right around and tells John that she once couldn't resist cheating on him, and it was with their former landlord, Artie. John absolutely loses his mind. He grabs a hacksaw and runs off to settle the score with Artie, but ends up getting knocked out by Artie's headbutt. Right then, Artie notices the teapot on the floor. The moment he touches it, he feels its mysterious power, and also spots a wad of cash inside. Alice snatches the teapot back, and tells John to get out of there quickly. Soon after, they run out of painful truths to share. No matter what the other person says, they don't feel hurt anymore. The teapot yields less and less money, totaling less than $100. But Alice quickly comes up with a new plan. They knock on their neighbor's door, and tell the husband that his beloved dog didn't just run away. His wife accidentally killed it and secretly buried it. The neighbor runs off in tears, while Alice and John are secretly thrilled. Next, John finds his rich boss's wife, and exposes the boss's weird fetishes. He hands over the photos he accidentally snapped before, directly to the boss's wife. She has a total breakdown. She never imagined her husband would do such things, but the more pain she feels, the more cash the teapot generates. Soon, they've stashed away nearly $1 million. Alice says she has one more massive secret. She reveals her sister was already pregnant before getting married, meaning her brother-in-law has been raising someone else's kid. They head over to the sister's house, saying they have something important to share.
There's a lie in this room, and we've come to clear it up.
What are you talking about?
I think you know.
Joe, I think there's something that we need to get out in the open. Something that Alice told me earlier today that I think would be better if you knew about. A while ago, you
I'm
once
jealous of your family.
In the end, Alice just couldn't bring herself to say it. Instead, the two sisters share a tight hug. That night, Alice decides to go for one last big score, to hit the 1 million mark and call it quits. She suggests they kidnap and kill a drug dealer, claiming it would be doing society a favor anyway. The two start digging a large grave in the woods, but halfway through, John suddenly snaps out of it. He realizes they've become increasingly evil. He urges Alice to stop before it's too late, but she won't listen to a word he says, and just keeps digging the grave on her own. John hurries to find Dr. Ling for help, but Dr. Ling tells him that they must willingly hand the teapot over to him. Only then will its magic vanish. But given the current situation, there's no way Alice will give it up. Meanwhile, Alice steps out of the shower to find John sitting on the windowsill, holding the teapot. John begs her to let the teapot go, fearing her husband might do something stupid. Alice readily agrees, but her eyes are glued strictly to the teapot. John can tell she's lying, so he takes a leap right out the window. The teapot hits the ground with him, spewing out a massive pile of cash. Fortunately, it was only the second floor. John quickly regains consciousness. Alice, however, is terrified by his actions. Finally coming to her senses, she swears on the spot to hand the teapot over to Dr. Ling tomorrow. But in the middle of the night, the alarm suddenly goes off. They find the teapot has been stolen, and the thief is none other than Artie. Remembering they have to be the ones to return it, they decide to take it back. They arrive at Artie's house. To their shock, in just one night, Artie and his girlfriend have gone completely insane. They plan to murder John and Alice, to use their extreme pain to generate more cash. Just then, the two hat guys suddenly burst in, and shoot Artie down in an instant. John and Alice hide behind the sofa. Not long after, the gunfire stops. When they stand up to check, the 4 people in the shootout are all dead, leaving behind a floor covered in cash. John and Alice finally hand the teapot over to Dr. Ling. They sell all their valuable possessions, and send the money to their friends in need. Driving their old, beat-up car, they start their lives over again. As for the doctor, he takes the teapot out to the Pacific Ocean. Let's go, and drops it into the water. Along with the sins and desires it carries, it sinks to the bottom of the sea. The truly isn't how much money about the brass teapot, but how it blatantly puts the idea of trading pain for profit right in front of human nature. At first, they just wanted to escape poverty and live a decent life, but when they realized the deeper the harm, the faster the cash flowed, their moral baseline started dropping bit by bit. From hurting themselves, to exploiting the pain of others, to nearly causing disasters intentionally. What they lost was never just their sanity, but their sense of boundaries and conscience. Poverty made them desperate for a breakthrough, but greed slowly made them stop seeing others as human beings, treating them as ATMs instead. When money becomes tied to suffering, happiness is destined to sour, because wealth gained through harm can never fill the void inside. Money can solve a lot of problems, but if the way you earn it turns you into a monster step by step, then in the end, you'll surely lose more than you gained.